Hey everyone, today we're cozying up with Amy Liu. She's the CEO and founder of clean beauty brand Tower 28. We chat about how her own struggles with eczema inspired her product vision, how her company is helping transform the relationship women have with their own skin, and how her Chinese American identity has shaped her company philosophy. Check it out. Welcome to Cozying Up with a Clear Cut, where we get up close and personal with women that inspire us. Today, we are sitting down with Amy Liu. She is the CEO and founder of clean beauty brand Tower 28 Beauty. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to chat about Tower 28 and your journey. We were just talking about how I was trying some of the products, and they are absolutely adorable and amazing to use. I'm wearing the lip gloss right now and it smells like candy. Like I can't stop licking my lips right now.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. We really do put a lot of thought into making our products not only non-toxic and not irritating. Part of my story is that I've been in the beauty industry for a long time, but I also have really sensitive skin. I've had eczema my entire adult life. But in addition to that, I really wanted the products to be fun, because I think that's what makeup is. And I think a lot of the products that are targeted towards people with sensitive skin often can be really medical in their approach, or even, kind of look boring. And so that was one of the things that was really important to me. So I'm glad it resonates with you.
Yeah. So with that being said, can you outline your career path and what ultimately inspired you to start Tower 28?
Yeah, for sure. So I've wanted to be an entrepreneur, I think, ever since I was a really young kid. My dad growing up was an entrepreneur, and I think I had this role model of my dad being an entrepreneur, and he really experienced all the highs and lows, but you could tell he really felt it, and he felt really attached to his job. And my mom, on the other hand, I feel like she had a job too, but she sort of was more of a check in, check out, and it was very much a job to her. And even though my dad had the highs and the lows, I remember feeling like I want that version of it, where you really feel attached and it seems so important to you. And so I always wanted to do it, but I also had a lot of, frankly, fear about anything, right? Whether it was failure, I didn't feel like I had enough money to do it. I didn't have enough experience. And so I graduated from business school with a concentration on entrepreneurship. And then after that, started working really in the beauty industry. So I went to Smashbox Cosmetics. I went to Kate Somerville. I went to Josie Marin. And then I spent a few years consulting at local digitally native brands here in Los Angeles. And the whole time I was like, oh, I'm just getting more experience. I'm getting closer to, being a number two. I'm learning. And then a friend of mine was like, I thought you said you always wanted to do this. Like, when are you going to take the leap? You're not getting any younger. And it was kind of like the right kick in the butt that I needed, frankly. And that's when I really started Tower 28. So I raised money about 3 years ago. And I launched about almost 2 years ago.
And what was the scariest part of launching Tower 28, and what was the most rewarding part?
Scary. There's so many scary things. I'm sure you can attest to this too as an entrepreneur yourself, but failure is a big one. I think as somebody who's had a long time background working in the same industry, it felt very public to me, even though I'm not I'm not an influencer. I don't own any major platforms of influence. But my friends all work in the beauty industry, right? So I felt like there was this, when I think anytime you tell people you're going to do something, and then and gratefully, a lot of my friends said, oh, I think of course this will go well. Of course it'll go well for you because you've been doing it for so long. But then it made me feel even more nervous that I would not do well. So I think one of the scary things is just trying, to be honest, right? And I think that you work on something, I'm sure you show people along the way, but you do it somewhat in isolation, right? Where you're like, I think this is cute. Do you think it's cute? Do you think it's good? And then you launch and you kind of hope that it resonates with people, and that what your intentions are really go out into the world in the way that people receive them. So I think that was definitely one of the, to be honest with you, so much of it has been scary, right? I think the initial part of it. I think the even like initial pitch meetings to go to retailers was scary for me. Raising money was scary for me. I think just putting yourself out there is probably the umbrella to it, though, right? It's hard to put yourself out there. And I forgot the second part of the question. Scary, and what was the other one?
The most rewarding part.
Oh, the most rewarding part, I think, is always the people. Whether I'm talking about the customers or I'm talking about my team or my kind of beauty community from an industry standpoint, I think people always make the journey more fun, more rewarding. I love reading the product reviews and hearing how much people love the product. And specifically, I don't know if I said this, but I've had a history of eczema my entire adult life. And so one of the reasons I really wanted to start Tower 28 or any makeup brand was because I felt like there was a hole in the market as somebody who wanted to wear makeup, but was kind of afraid to put makeup on my face because I was afraid it would make my skin worse. So that was one of the things I was really looking for, was to feel safe using a product and have it actually just not make my skin worse and be good for my eczema, even though I really want to cover it up. And so we particularly have one product called our SOS spray. And that product is really antibacterial and anti-inflammatory. And I see so many, and it's really, we named it SOS, Save Our Skin, because it literally did that for me. I still get eczema, so not to say that it completely gets rid of your eczema or your acne or whatever your problem is, but for me, it's made it so it's so much more under control. I've never had my skin for this period of time be so something I can count on for such a long time, like so reliable, I guess is probably the right word. And so when I read other people, or I see other people have like great reviews about, and I see the before and afters about how it works for them, it really means a lot to me, because I personally feel like it changes the way that you walk through the world when you feel more confident. And so much for a woman, especially, I think society really makes your looks something that is so base forward and a part of your confidence and identity, that I think if something we're putting out into the world can make that kind of a difference in your life, I think it's huge. I mean, I went through, as somebody with eczema, I've literally gone through everything. I've done every single diet. I've gone to Western doctors. I've gone to Eastern doctors. I was on the only thing that really worked for me on an ongoing basis before SOS, to be honest with you, was topical and oral steroids, which make me feel really bad about myself using them, because I know that they're not long-term good for you, but they worked for me. And so I felt like I was choosing vanity over my health in a lot of ways. So that's a long-winded way of saying the thing that really makes me happy is when people like our products.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you come up with this formula? I know you had a background in beauty, but what was the first step into coming up with a clean product that didn't exist that really worked well?
Yeah. So first of all, like, I am not a chemist. I'm not a scientist. I have a background in working at beauty companies, specifically in sales and marketing, right? So I do know about product development, but one thing I think is really important in my personal story is that I really believe in people who have deep experience and authority, right? So I don't research every ingredient every day constantly and look at the no-no list, but Credo does. Credo does a really good job of that. So we looked at Credo's no-no list and we partnered with them to make sure that we were making products that were as non-toxic as possible. So that was sort of the gold standard from a no-no list perspective. And then from a irritation standpoint, I personally was using the National Eczema Association as my guide for what not to use in terms of everything from like detergent to like body lotion and things like that. And so we looked at their no-no list, and I think it's pretty comprehensive. Their no-no list is really all about irritation. So we took a look at that list too. So basically, making the products is this combination of saying like, these are all the things I want this product to be, but then it cannot include all of these ingredients in it. And so then you go into a very iterative process of development. Ours is even more stringent than I think the average one, because in combination of our giant no-no list, we also do quite a bit of testing, which is still, cosmetics is really unregulated. So all of this testing is generally at your own, you're doing it because you're trying to cover your own ass to some extent. But we're also, in addition to that, doing irritation testing, making sure dermatologist signs off on it to say that it is safe for sensitive skin. And just we're making sure we're dotting our I's and crossing the T's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And what's a piece of advice you would give to an aspiring female entrepreneur?
I mean, so many things, right? I would say the one thing is just to start, right? To get people around you who believe in you and believe in what you're doing, because I think it is really hard to keep going if you don't feel like you're making, if you're gaining momentum. So one piece of advice I got really early that I thought made a difference was I asked a really successful entrepreneur I knew. I said, like, what are the things I should be focused on? Should I be focused on like this KPI? Should it be this one? And I was like using all these very businessy, typical things that you look at as metrics of success. And he was like, honestly, just throw all of that out the window. He's like, the number one thing you need is momentum. You just need to feel like it's working so that you can get up every day and you can keep going. Because if you don't have that wind at your back, or that feeling that like all the effort you're putting into it is going somewhere, like you just don't have the motivation to do it. And I think that was great advice. And it's been really true for me.
Yeah, that's great. I haven't heard that one before, but it feels very true. And, you need to have that.
For sure. And part of that is like people around you who are like, hey, this is working. Because like in the early days, it isn't even, I don't know, maybe it's like your follower count a little bit, or maybe it's, but honestly, it was really just even getting an order that was, hey, I don't know that person and they ordered something, like that's amazing.
Yeah, that's like the best feeling when you're starting
or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like there's challenges in like every stage of the business. Like at first it's just like getting those couple first orders of people who like aren't your friends or people and then then it goes into hiring people and managing people, and there's always different struggles.
For sure. And it definitely is a struggle. So I think like back to that original point, you just have to feel like it's going the right direction and it's worth it.
Amazing. So for the SOS spray, out of my personal curiosity, should I put it on before I put on makeup or after I put on makeup?
Yeah. So I'm so glad you asked, because I think sometimes people are especially confused, because we are really by and large a makeup brand that has one skincare SKU. And because of that, we're sitting inside the makeup area and then people see the spray and they think, oh, is it a setting spray? It's really not. You should use SOS on clean skin after, ideally. You can use it throughout the day too, but ideally you wash your face, you let it dry, and then you spray it on. And that's so that way, if you have moisturizer or if you have makeup on, it just can't penetrate as deeply, right? Since it's water-based. So water is the delivery system here. And so that's the only reason why. So I would do wash your face, let dry down, put SOS on, let that dry down just so it has as much time as possible to kind of work, and then do your moisturizer, your serums, or whatever you're doing.
Awesome. Good. I'm excited to use it. Hey everyone, Olivia here. Hope you're enjoying our episode. Our Clear Cut collection features fine jewelry pieces inspired and designed with you in mind. Our collection is ever-changing, and each piece is handmade and made to order here in New York City. Don't forget to check it out and use the code COZY, COZY, for free shipping on any purchase. What has been your proudest moment since founding Tower 28?
my proudest moment, I would say recently, was my daughter, Ellie, actually wrote a essay for school about, they had to all choose someone that they respected. And most people chose like Oprah or, someone really legit. And I am not saying I am in the same ballpark as Oprah or like Eddie Gandhi or anyone like that. But that is, I think, who most of she's in 4th grade. And she chose me. And it was a story about how her mom had started a company, worked really hard, and it honestly did really make me feel proud, because I feel like I'm setting an example for her, right, of what women can do and what they're capable of. And I even feel like I'm setting a good example for her in terms of like, she sees her dad pitching in more, right? So she's growing up with this sense of like, it's not that women do housework and kids and men do, and frankly, I still do more of the housework, but but that men are the ones who make the money or whatever. I feel like she's growing up with this sense of equity and partnership, and I think it's really amazing. It's something I am very proud of.
And you're Chinese American, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm half Chinese as well.
Oh, you are?
Mm-hmm. My mom's maiden name is actually Liu.
Oh, cool. So maybe we're related. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe. We could be. I can understand and speak 一点点. How about you?
一点点.
How has your Chinese American identity influenced your life and career?
Oh, this is a big question. I think especially at this time. It's a weighty one, right? I think for me as an Asian American, having a brand that is based in, we have like a beachy LA brand, right? And one of the things that I was always trying to show from the outset, from the very beginning, was growing up in America. I was born in Minnesota. I grew up in like the Inland Empire of Los Angeles, which is like the east side of Los Angeles. Predominantly white communities. And I was always kind of the only Asian girl growing up. And all my friends were,
me too,
blonde. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Miami Beach. So not a huge Asian community.
Okay, so there you go. Not a huge Asian community, right? So I did not grow up. I mean, I grew up very much the only Asian kid back then. And beach culture was so prevalent at the time, which I'm sure it was in Miami Beach too. And I felt like I didn't fit in. I didn't see myself in any of that, right? So like when I was Billabong, Hurley, all of that was really popular. My friends were all putting sun in their hair. And everyone was like, let's go play volleyball. Even though we, by the way, we lived an hour away from the beach. We just really liked the style. But I really felt like I didn't see myself in any of that marketing. I mean, never mind the beach marketing. Like I didn't see myself in any of the magazines or in any of the movies or anything like that. And so I think as a beauty brand, I'm very conscious of the fact that we are creating aspiration. We are creating a beauty standard every time we put out any content, right? So I am that much more conscious of it. And I think one of the things I wanted to do with Tower 28 is to show the version of the beach that I see and know here in Los Angeles, which is literally every socioeconomic background and every like color under the sun of person. Because it's one of those things where the beach is one place that everyone gets to enjoy a healthy lifestyle. Right? It doesn't really matter. And that was one of the things I really wanted Tower 28 to be, which is why all of our products they start at 12 and they end at 28. So it's compared to most clean products, it's a really accessible price point. We actually try to stay pretty close to like Sephora Collections pricing, right? Or Glossier or something like that, because I wanted the products to be for everyone. Not just both like in the visuals we put out and everything else. But just to go back to the Stop Asian Hate part, I think I think the part that's really important right now is to realize that it's not just the hate crimes that have gone up, right? Because I think that's the most extreme version when you think about someone dying or somebody like you see a really old person getting pushed on the street, like that is horrific.
Mhm.
But then I think sometimes people look at that and they're like, oh, there's 2,000 cases. How about all the times that like, you know, everyone else has things happen too, which I completely agree with. None of it is permissible. But I think what's really happening is there is a shift in the way that the perception of Asians, which I think is more dangerous on a daily basis. So as an example of that, my kids I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old. The 12 and 10-year-old, early pandemic last February, when they were still in school, they were in school and they came home and they told me they were like waiting for pickup or whatever. So they were standing together and they said, another kid was standing near them, was like, hey, my mom told me not to stand too close to you guys because you might make me sick.
Whoa.
And they came home and I was like, they told me this, but they kind of laughed it off, right? They kind of laughed it off and they were like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And so I didn't make that big of a deal about it. But I've also found myself being that much more conscious of like, if I cough or if I, anything in public, I'm more conscious of the fact that somebody's going to look at me and think I'm unhygienic, I'm dirty, anything like that, right? And I live in a really liberal bubble. I live on the west side of LA, right? So I'm not talking about like if this is happening here to my kids, and if that's happening to my kids, that's because those kids are at home and their parents are talking about it, or maybe they have the news on and they're hearing leaders of the world say things like the Kung Flu virus or whatever it is, or the
China
Chinese
virus,
flu.
yeah.
So I think that the China virus. So I think the danger is really in the words we use, the perception that we perpetuate. So I don't know. It's really it's an unfortunate thing that's happening. Yes. And it makes me sad.
Mm-hmm. What motivates?
So, I'm sure. I don't know if you feel the same way, but
I definitely do. It's like, it's really heartbreaking every day to watch the news and like see these images day after day. Like my mom is older and she's with us now, and I'm always like a little nervous when she's going out by herself because I don't want, her to get hurt. Like, I don't know.
Totally. It's something I think I haven't thought that much about either. But I also think that like me, I very much feel Asian American, right? Like I feel like I was born here. I grew up here my whole life. And so like this is my country. And so I think it's especially terrible.
Yeah. And I think what makes this country so awesome and so unique is that it's comprised of so many different people from different cultures that can make it, so rich, and we can take from all of that. So it's just like, it's annoying. It sucks. It hurts when any group is targeted for, the way they look or their traditions or background.
Yeah, totally.
On a more positive note, what's something that motivates you? Like, what is something that drives your ambition?
I really love seeing, I think it's the team and the community part of it, right? Like I really feel like to put something out into the world and feel like it's well received and people love it. And I think being part of the conversation, all of that really is motivating for me. It's like recently we went to a full shelf at Sephora. So we were on like a 14-inch shelf and now we're on a 28-inch shelf and we're on the top. And like, if you go to Sephora right now, we're in the front of store too. And I think it's seeing all of these things come to life, like putting an idea out in the world and working with my team to make it happen and having it feel really tangible is so exciting, really. Like, I'm sure you feel the same way when that you can be a part of somebody's life, right? You're putting jewelry out into the world and in such a meaningful way that you're then part of their life. And I think we, on a much smaller level, right, we're putting in out beauty products, but to put something out there that people receive and it makes them happy, I think is really
Yeah.
a really amazing thing. Like, just a quick story. I was at Sephora recently, and I was looking at our end cap, and there's a guy working there, and at Sephora, and he was picking curbside orders, and there was a brand there next to us. And I said, "Oh, how's this brand doing?" And he said, "Well, it's fine." He's like, "I don't really hear that much about it. And, but I'm sure they're doing, great or whatever." And he's like, "But you know what brand you should really look at? Cause I love these products, is Tower 28. And I stopped and I was like, "Wait a minute, I'm the founder of Tower 28. And he fully fangirled. He was like, I'm not, I'm not a influencer. I'm like a regular person. So I guess I'm not used to that. And so to have that exchange felt so exciting to me, and it felt like it was real. So I think a lot of the listeners you have are people who probably want to do things entrepreneurially. And I would just say, like, I came into this with no influence other than my working relationships, right? So I had beauty industry expertise, but that was something I also worked for. I did that for a long time before I became a founder. And I think even people get put off by, like, "Oh, well, I can't raise money." I didn't raise money from, like, it's not like I have a bunch of people who had, some people can raise money from a few people who have a lot of money. That was not my situation. I raised from a lot of people with a little bit of money. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I would just say it's there's no one way to do it, and it's all possible.
To shift gears a little bit, since, we are a jewelry company and we feel that, every piece of jewelry has, some sentimental meaning or some significance. Just curious, what pieces of jewelry are your favorite and why?
I mean, of course, I would be remiss to not say that my favorite piece of jewelry is my engagement ring. And I think the reason my engagement ring is so, you can see, the reason why it's
beautiful.
So special to me is obviously it's important to me because my husband gave it to me, but also because maybe this is oversharing, but he is a really frugal person. I mean, really, 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 and that's a nice way of putting it, right? So I think to me it was always going, like, when he gave me this ring, I knew it was at, like, the outer limits of what made him comfortable, for sure. Like, just spending money at all makes him uncomfortable. But it was, he had read a piece of advice so my husband invests, he's an investor, and he loves Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, which are some of the most famous value investors in the world. And one of the pieces of advice that they've been very public about is that you should not chintz out when it comes to jewelry, because jewelry is, especially when you're talking about giving it to your significant other, it is an investment, and it is a mark of, like, they will look at it every day and they will remember how you feel about them every day. And I think that is what it is for me, right? Like, I think, like, my husband, as cheap as he is, for lack of a better word, like, in that moment, he went as big as he could, and it reminds me how important that decision was to him and that commitment. So I do have a lot of sentimentality around it too. Not just because of the, I don't know, worth or the size, but.
Yeah, it's like super special.
If anyone out there is listening, go big.
Love
go big.
that.
Your person will remember.
Amazing. Well, this was so much fun. I love chatting with you today. Could you tell everyone where they can follow you,
us
where they
at
can
Tower
buy your
28 Beauty.
products,
We are
and
on Instagram,
stay up
we're
to
on
date on all
TikTok,
things
we're on
Tower
Twitter.
28?
My personal handle is at Amy Liu, AMYLIU 47. I don't post that often, but I definitely am there, and I'm in the DMs on both channels. And then we're sold online and all stores at Sephora, US and Canada, as well as Credo online and in store, and Revolve.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to do this. It was super fun.
We had so much fun talking to Amy about her take on the beauty industry. If you want to shop the products discussed in the podcast like SOS, make sure you go to tower28beauty.com. Just like Amy's engagement ring, what gift or piece of jewelry has meant the most to you and why?